Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to another session of Give Us Five, where we have the opportunity to talk to a distinguished, proven leader and have him or her respond to five questions about leadership. And we've got an early Christmas present today because we are so blessed to have the great former Texas football coach Mack Brown talking with us today. Welcome, Coach Brown, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for doing this. We need to continue to talk leadership and promote leaders throughout our country, and we've got a lot of things going on now that need to get fixed, and only the leaders that can step up and do it. So I'm honored to be on.
Well, thank you so much. And we'll start right off with the first question. And it's one, what steered you towards coaching? What was it, a person that inspired you? Was it a calling? What steered you towards the profession of coaching?
Bob, it was my family. My grandfather, who I absolutely loved, he was my mentor, role model. He was the winningest football coach in Middle Tennessee history for high school. Stadium's named after him. My brother Watson, who was the head coach at Vanderbilt, UAB, Cincinnati, a few Rice. Um, we actually rode his bus when we were 5 and 6 years old. We'd ride to the games with little letter jackets on, and we were at every practice, and so it was just part of it. And then my dad was a coach, and I think he lost 11 games in high school, and they fired him, made him the principal. So it didn't work as good for him. But we just grew up in a sports family and a coaching family with an older and a younger brother for me, and I've just had a wonderful life.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. And of course, you didn't do too badly yourself with the profession at all. Um, so, speaking of specifically of leadership, there's a long list of positive traits associated with good leaders. I wonder if you might share with us three to five that are very important to you that you look for in leaders and that you admire.
Yes, I always thought the first one, Bob, was the leader has to be the hardest worker in the room. And that's to get everybody else's attention. Because if you can't hold yourself to the highest standard, how do you ask others to do it? And that was really, really important. They also have to be great communicators. If you can't communicate, then you can't build up trust and respect, and you can't get everybody aligned. And that's really important. Got to be high energy for people to follow you. You got to be fun. You got to be exciting. You've got to have something that Coach Rowe used to call it. You got to have it. So when you walk in the room, everybody turns and looks at you. And I think that's very, very important. And you got to be able to take negatives and turn them into positives. You can't get down. You can't get every time something hits you that's bad. You can't go in the tank, and you've just got to turn those things around. Um, and you got to get people to believe in your ideas, but you also need to get them to be able to share ideas with you, and that comes back from the communication, I think, too. If I can get you to buy into what I'm thinking, but give me your thoughts, so when we make the decision, you think that you've made the decision as well, then it's a whole lot better for alignment.
That's great. Great advice. Well, we talked about how much success you've had as a coach. I wonder, reflecting on your past accomplishments, is there one or maybe two events or experiences that really you cherish that it really marked your success?
Bob, I would think there's two at North Carolina. We were in the top 10 back-to-back years before I left there, and then the two Rose Bowls probably at Texas where we beat Michigan, which I know you don't like to talk about with your Michigan background, and then won the national championship the next year with USC. But I would think the quote that always sticks in my mind is when Billy Graham said that a coach can change more lives in 1 year than the average person can change in a lifetime. And we lost a young player with a car wreck named Cole Pittman in 2001. He flipped his truck on his way back to school the day before spring practice. So having to manage that, help your team understand when you lose a person at your age that really didn't do anything wrong. He fell asleep and the car flipped over. And then last year, Bob, we had a young man that Sally was in the elevator with him at North Carolina, and he was a wide receiver. He's a 4-point student. His mom's a single mom that's a police officer in Sumter, South Carolina. he falls in the elevator, and Sally tries to pick him up and help him. And so they get him, and they thinks it's back cramps. Well, that night he can't sleep, and they take him to the hospital, and it's stage 4 lung cancer. He
Oh
doesn't
my God.
smoke, he doesn't drink. Um, so we watched this for 2 years. And then we see him go to a cane, and then we see him go from being a great athlete to go to a wheelchair, then to hospice, and then we watch him die. And managing that with a team during the season. The other one was in the off season, but during the season was something that was really, really difficult because there is no book to tell a coach how to handle a player dying in front of the team. We had to sit there and tell him he's got 10 days to 2 weeks. He's in
Mm,
hospice. So Sally will take you in to see him, but you need to say goodbye because you're not going to see him anymore. And then I'll briefly touch this, Bob. At the funeral, it was really interesting. The chaplain that we had, Mitch Mason, for North Carolina, did a great job with us. But at the funeral, he said, "There's something I need to tell you. Number one, you don't know how much time you've got. You may join him this afternoon. You may be with him tonight. You may have 20 years, but you better enjoy what you've got because you don't know how long you've got it." And the second thing he said really got my attention. He said, "And every morning that you get up, if you and your family are healthy, and every night that you go to bed, if you and your family are healthy, then you have no problems. So you need to be grateful for the things that you have instead of griping about the things that you don't have." And it really got my attention because he said, if you're told your wife's got 3 weeks to live, you're going to drop all those other problems.
yeah.
So, very honestly, you don't have problems if you're all healthy. You can work through everything else. And I think that's something that I learned. The last part of this, we were up in the mountains of North Carolina. We had just gotten to Chapel Hill the second time, and our team had won 2 games the year before. They'd won 3 games the year before. So this team we took over had won 5 games in 2 years. So there was some depression. They didn't feel good about themselves. They weren't confident. We had a friend in the mountains that of North Carolina that his son was 19 years old. He was a freshman in college. His girlfriend left him. He shot himself in her front yard in front of her and killed himself. So Sally and I run back immediately because we've got 120 kids in this room, and we know that they're struggling some with what's happened the last 2 years in school and the pressures. And so we said, I told them a story. I didn't use his name, but I said, here's what we've got, guys. Um, I'm not supposed to talk to you a lot about suicide because I'm not a doctor and I don't understand it, but it's selfish. Your family is crushed when you leave them. Your friends are crushed. So I do know that if you're struggling with something, football's not worth it. Academics, the school's not worth it. Let's get you straight. So if you're struggling, talk to a friend, talk to me, we got counselors here. Here are your counselors right here. Well, as soon as that meeting was over, there was a young guy that came up to my office, Bob, and he sat there and said, "Coach, I was on a bridge last night
Oh my gosh.
and I was going to jump, and you just got my attention. So thank you. I need help." Well, Sally's sitting there crying. His name's Jake Lawler, and it's a public story, so he wouldn't mind me using his name. And then now he's a prominent screenwriter for Disney. I talk to him and text with him 2 or 3 times a month. And when he puts something stupid on Twitter, I'll say, "You okay?" And he's, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm in good shape." But coaches, Bob, and people in general, but especially leaders, can not only change lives, but they can save lives. And you never know what's going on in somebody's life. So every time you walk by somebody, you can read them. And if you say, "How are you doing?" and he ducks his head or she ducks her head and said, I'm okay, you need to go sit down with them and see if you can help them fight through whatever they're dealing with.
That's great, coach. That's
And I
great.
think that's the biggest impact you have in coaching, really. We talk about the trophies, we talk about the championships. It's really about people. It's about relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, besides what you've already mentioned, coach, what are some of the qualities you look for when you're assessing or you're looking for a leader? I mean, as a coach, you got leading on the sideline, but you got leaders on the field as well. What do you look for in people?
Well, we mentioned the hardest workers because nobody's going, if you're a talker and not a worker, nobody's going to listen. They're not going to follow you. The second thing is confidence. If you're not confident in yourself, why would somebody else be confident in you? And I think that's a huge part of this. And the third thing, Bob, you've got to have everybody, we call it common purpose. I went to Iraq with the military in 2009. I was on the front lines. And I was with General Odonero, and I said, how do you get these young people that aren't making any money to stay over here and leave their families and get shot at? It's amazing to me. It's they're eager to reenlist. How do you do that? And he said, Coach, it's common purpose. Our purpose is to save America's freedom. Our purpose is to take care of the person on your right and take care of the person on your left. So I came back and said, coaches have to have common purpose. And our common purpose was to graduate every player, win every game, and make sure that we were better preparing these students for life when they got out of football. So a huge part of that we mentioned earlier is communication. And with communication, you've got to get people to talk to you. You've got to find out what they're thinking and not just what you're thinking. And so many coaches do all the talking. I always wanted to ask you questions. Why are you here, Bob? What do you like? What are you concerned about? What do you think we can fix? Why do you think that's not working? And then you get them talking to you. And the only way you can build up trust is promise them things and then you do it. You got to deliver because they're going to watch. Because usually when a new coach comes in, they're not trusting because he didn't recruit them. And then after you get them in that position, then they'll have respect for you that you were talking to them, you cared about what they thought, and that you did what you told them you were going to do. So you got respect. And the last thing to me is uh, you're a mentor to these coaches, these staff members, these players, and they want you to have integrity. And my granddad, who I loved, as I said earlier, he always said, always do what you know is the right thing to do. And if you have to think about it, it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
And I always thought, if I'm starting to think about, should I do this or not? No, no. And he said, it may not be comfortable at the time. People may not like it at the time. But if you always do what you know is the right thing to do after you've thought about it and you've researched it, you'll never have to look back and second guess yourself. And to me, that's it. If I've done everything with integrity, I can lay down and sleep at night and be good.
Yeah, that's great advice. Great advice. Well, Coach, given that, what would be your advice to a young person who comes up and says, Coach, I want to be a leader? What would you tell them they need to do?
The first thing I would do, Bob, and what I've done in my career is find guys that I want to be like, find leaders and study them that you
Mm,
respect, that are successful in an area that is similar to yours. Maybe male, maybe female. You don't have to be them, but you need to learn from them. And then go study them. Go ask them questions. What makes you successful? What separated you from everybody else in your field? Why are you good? And it's really amazing to hear the answers. And I just love that. I love learning from people who have been successful that are great leaders. Secondly, is you have to have a philosophy. To be a leader, you've got to have alignment with your group, and that goes from that communication, trust and respect, and common purpose. But you got to have alignment. And after you get alignment, then you've got to have a strategic plan. And that's the common purpose. We've all got a plan to do the same thing. Then you have to have a group of people that are all on the same page that will work hard to make that plan work. And I've always been told that even if it's not the best plan, if you've got a lot of really good people and they all believe in it and they're all working to make it work, it'll still probably work. And then the last thing, Bob, would be have a clear message. There was a guy that was a billionaire in Texas that we lost named Red McCombs. He owned the Minnesota Vikings, and Red was a mentor and dear friend of mine. He's one of those guys that I learned from. And I always said, why were you successful? And he said, because I always told people that exactly what I wanted. I had a very clear and direct message. He said, when I took over the Vikings, I walked in and the entire staff, not just the coaches, but the entire staff was in a room. And I said, okay, I'm Red McCombs. I'm your new owner. We're going to sell out every preseason game for the Minnesota Vikings. General manager stands up, raises his hand, and he said, Mr. McCombs, with all due respect, you can't do that. You can't sell out preseason games. They just won't do that. He said, you're fired. Get your stuff, get up, get out. I want you out of your office by 5 o'clock. He said, no, you don't understand. He said, no, you don't understand. Get out now. He said, now let's start over with my message again. We are going to sell out every preseason game. He said, everybody in the room was saying, yes, sir, we'll get it sold without question. And then Terry Donahue, who I loved, was the head coach at UCLA for 20 years. And he was a great coach. And he's retiring, and I'm coaching in an all-star game with him. And I sat there and I said, Coach, if you had to do over, because this is learning from leaders, if you had to do over, what would you do different? And he said, it's very simple. I fired 4 people in 20 years, and all 4 of them asked me why they were being fired. So I obviously didn't have a clear and direct message to them while they were messing it up so they could get it fixed. And a lot of times, and this is really key for our listeners, Bob, it's not what you say, it's what people hear.
Mm.
Because your message to them they may not get what you're saying. So I always have them repeat to me what they heard. So I know exactly not what I said, but what they heard. I used to bring players in and I'd say, here's something that these 4 things you're doing great. Here's one thing that you need to fix. And I'd say, what'd you hear? They said, well, you yelled at me over that one thing. And I said, no, you didn't even hear the 4 positive things. So let's go back over and do this right. So have a clear message and make sure that you're direct with it. Have them repeat it and make sure that they understood exactly what you're trying to tell them.
That's great. Well, before I let you go, Coach, we at True Growth, we put a lot of time in getting folks to identify their 5 top personal values that guide their lives. I wonder if you might share your 3 to 5 top personal values.
Yes, my first value would be my faith. I pray a lot, and I ask guidance a lot, and like everybody else, I'm stubborn sometime, and I don't know what I want, and then it won't be working like I want it to, and then I'll say, okay, God, I hear you. Help me with this now. Or we lose a young person. God, I don't understand. I'm gonna try to get to heaven so I can figure this out. Why do we lose great young people? I've had a great life. I'm good. I don't want to die, but if I do, I've checked enough boxes in my life. I'm good. But I want young people to have the opportunities that you've had and that I have. And I want them to get married, and I want them to have kids, and I want them to have grandkids, and all the wonderful things that have happened and are happening in my life. So faith would be the first one. Family is the second one. You don't even get to choose your family, but my mother's gone, and she was the best. She always said, "You always make it right for your family. You don't fight, you don't argue, you don't criticize because family is special." And she wanted all of us to get together. Um, she wanted all of us to get together, and we were together on the 4th. We were together at Christmas. Even they'd come to bowl games. But she wanted that family to eat together and spend time together, and make the family really, really special. And the third one, Bob, I would say is relationships. Coach Darrell Royal won 3 national championships at Texas. He was like the Bo Schembechler at Michigan. In fact, in our Rose Bowl game in '05, I asked that Coach Schembechler and Coach Royal be the honorary captains. And that was so cool for me to see those 2 out there. They're just men that I loved and admired, and they're out there shaking hands. Now, it really got me. I could tell it was the start of money in college athletics because Mickey Mouse flipped the coin, not those 2 great coaches. So you
Oh
knew
my
it was
gosh.
involved with Disney and money at that time. But Coach started getting dementia, and I brought him out to a game at Texas, and I thought he was still good enough to handle this, and he walked out and he flipped the coin. It was the Wyoming game. Stadium's named after him, Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. He was coming over in pregame and shook my hand. I said, Coach, thank you for doing this. Fans just like to see you, and they like to know that you're okay. And he said, Coach, where am I?
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
said, you're in your stadium, Coach. And he said, who's playing? I said, it's Texas and Wyoming. And he said, which one's Texas? And I said, Coach, it's the burnt orange jerseys that you're famous for. And that's the last time he came to a stadium. So he went in a home. And this is really important for everybody to know. He didn't know he'd won 3 national championships. He didn't know the stadium was named after him. Um, he didn't know he's the winningest coach in Texas football history. But every ex-player that walked in that room, he knew their name.
Oh my gosh.
And it shocked me. And I would try to help him, and he'd say, Coach, I know that's Ted Coy. He was a running back for us against Arkansas in the '69 national championship and didn't know that the stadium was named after him. So, what it taught me, Bob, is when we all lay down, it's not about the trophies, it's not about the money, it's not about the wins. It's about faith, it's about family, and it's about relationships.
Wow, that is powerful, Coach. That's wonderful. Well, Coach, we cannot thank you enough for taking your time to be with us. And we want to wish you and your family the very, very merriest of Christmas and a blessed New Year. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, Bob. I'd like to close by saying I wish everybody 2026 a year of health, happiness, and a year of blessings. Let's make it our best year ever.
Thanks, Coach. And thanks everybody for taking the time to listen. And uh, stay tuned for our next Give Us Five, which will be announced in the True Growth newsletter at the beginning of the month.